Welcome to Grab or Stab. I'm Matt McFarland. Here we talk about horror movies, and we grab if the movie's good, and we stab if it's not. Well, clearly, you might be here because you like scary movies, but I have a question for you.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Well, for a lot of people, it's the movie we're going to be talking about today, which is the original Scream from 1996, one of the most important horror movies of the past 30 years. But before we get into all of that, let me explain how decisions are made around this place on whether or not to grab or stab a movie. First of all, it comes down to how good are the kills. Second, the characters and how they fit into the Ghostface reveal. Third, the impact the movie had on the genre. And lastly, how scary is it? Also, we're gonna have a little bonus segment at the end of this video that you're not gonna wanna miss. Directed by Wes Craven, the creator of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and written by Kevin Williamson, Scream completely revitalized the slasher genre when it came out, which at the time was in a very bad state as some of the biggest franchises like Halloween and Friday the 13th were coming out with some of their worst movies. Scream implemented this new self-aware meta whodunit style to the horror scene. Scream was also able to find a much wider audience than the majority of slashers before it, including a large female audience, partially because the movie was able to cast some really well-known actors, which slashers typically can't do. This was mainly because of Drew Barrymore signing on to play Sidney Prescott early on in development. So, because of that, other popular actors became very interested. This also hooked in Wes Craven, who initially turned the movie down because he thought it was too gory.
And the opening 15 minutes of Scary Movie was so hard, I almost didn't want to go there again. And then I sort of kicked myself in the pants and said, you know, you have a lot of fans that have been telling you should go back and do a real kick-ass movie again. And I said, if ever there was a kick-ass movie, it's Scary Movie. So I called up Bob and I said, okay, I'm going to do it.
With the amalgamation of Kevin's script and Wes's direction, I knew you couldn't go wrong.
However, before filming started, Drew Barrymore had some unexpected commitments come up and couldn't play the lead role, but still stayed on the project to play Casey Becker, which ended up being a blessing in disguise because it made what happened to her character that much more shocking. A lot of people don't know that the MPAA almost killed most of the original Scream. Towards the very end of production, while the budget was running out, the MPAA wouldn't budge on the NC-17 rating, no matter what they tried to do. However, just before the film was set to be released, in a last-ditch effort, the head of the studio met with the MPAA. The movie then suddenly got an R rating, and when Wes Craven asked what the hell they said to them, they told the MPAA they needed to re-watch the movie because it was a satire comedy, which ended up making all the difference. The original title for Scream was actually Scary Movie, but because the movie contained both satire and comedy, towards the end of production they decided Scream was a better fit. Filming took place over an 8-week period in California. The budget was $15 million, and this motherfucker did well, bringing in $173 million and becoming the highest grossing slasher film ever until Halloween 2018. Due to Scream's success, the genre started to see a flood of similar, more teen-focused horror movies. Undoubtedly, Scream changed the tone of the genre forever.
For me, Scream was like horror genre on steroids. It was just that much faster, that much funnier, that much scarier, that much better.
Over the next several weeks, I'll be covering each of the 5 Scream movies, and depending on when my videos are released, definitely the 6th as well, sometime in 2023. Now, it's gonna be a marathon, but don't you worry, I'll be right there for you at the halfway point with plenty of Vaseline for your nipples. Alright, enough of all of that. Let's find out if the original Scream is good enough to grab or if it's one we want to stab. But first, we need to get into the movie for a bit. Wait, hang on. Can you wait right there? I can't see a goddamn thing in this mask. And it all starts with us watching Casey Becker here answer the phone. Casey's played by Drew Barrymore, who's in a big-ass house, popcorn on the stove, and a freshly rewound movie about to pop into the VHS player. Sounds like the perfect mid-90s evening to me. Well, until that phone rang. The man on the other line pretends to have dialed the wrong number. However, he persistently gets her attention on the third call. Casey gives in and provides the caller with her evening plans to watch a scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite favorite scary movie?
The iconic Ghostface voice is done by voice actor Roger Jackson, who performed the calls on the set in a separate room on a cell phone while watching monitors and reacting to the actors in real time. Wes Craven wanted to keep Roger Jackson separated from the other cast members for the entire production to make his voice seem scarier.
Roger, the voice on the telephone, he just had a voice of intelligence and malevolence, and he could really get into it. And we brought him onto the set when Drew was not there, and we hid him in a part of the house where she never saw him, and I don't think she ever met him. So his voice was a complete mystery and totally in that character for her.
As Casey walks around the house, she starts to kind of enjoy the little chat. Shit, I'd let Roger Jackson talk to me all night with that sultry voice. But the phone call quickly gets weird when the caller insists again on knowing her name.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
What did you say?
And then Casey makes the cardinal sin in a Scream movie. The caller's fingers, though, are starting to get real sore from all these redials, and he ain't playing anymore.
Listen, asshole!
No, you listen, you little bitch. You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish, understand?
And not only is he real mad, but the caller gives us our first indication of how self-aware this franchise will become.
You should never say who's there. Don't you watch scary movies? It's a death wish. You might as well just come out here to investigate a strange noise or something.
By the way, this house is nice. And after informing Casey of what not to do in a scary movie, she admits that she is actually dating someone, and he's very big and very scary. Apparently not scary enough though, because this motherfucker is outside tied up and the man on the phone wants to play a little game. And what kind of game, you ask? Well, movie trivia, and if she gets the question right, Steve lives. No pressure. And after a little warm-up question, Casey now has to name the killer in Friday the 13th.
Jason! Jason! Jason!
I'm sorry. That's the wrong answer. You should know Jason's mother, Mrs. Voorhees, was the original killer. Jason didn't show up until the sequel.
And you know what that means? The high school football team's gonna need to warm up that backup quarterback because Stevie Boy's now got a bit of a tummy ache, giving us our first kill of the franchise. Little unfortunate that it's off screen, but this isn't Friday the 13th. You don't really watch Scream for the creative kills.
Final question. Are you ready? What door am I at?
And the home fills with the well-done Jiffy Pop, adding a nice vibe to this scene. Casey spots the killer inside and sneaks her way out of one of the 92 goddamn doors in this house. And why run away or call the police when you can just sit and admire the murderer as he judges the feng shui of your house? Wait, a car's pulling up. Maybe we should run to them. Nah, just stay closer to the killer. That'll work out. And surprise, Casey, the two finally meet, and about damn time Casey finally runs for it. Oh hey, Steve. But after 20 feet of running, Casey needs a moment. Ah shit, I said I needed a moment. But the killers in movies tend to lack empathy, so Casey gets stabbed in the chest, which was a sequence almost cut out by the MPAA until Wes Craven lied and told them the scene with the knife stab was the only take that they filmed. The now iconic Ghostface mask is partially based on the famous Scream painting by Edvard Munch. The mask was first developed for novelty stores during Halloween season between 1991 and 1992 by a company named Fun World as a part of a mask series called Fantastic Faces. Story has it that producer Marianne Madalena discovered the mask inside of an attic of a home during location scouting for the movie. Back to the movie, Casey is then able to temporarily get away, but because she was just choked so hard, she's unable to alert mom and dad. Casey does get to see her killer immediately before the final blow. Mom and dad notice the mess inside, and Casey's nowhere to be found. As they attempt to call the police, they hear Casey gasping on the other end. Casey's father tells her mother to drive to the Mackenzies to call the police, which is actually a reference to the end of the original Halloween movie, when Laurie Strode tells the children to go to the Mackenzies' house.
Want to go down the street to the Mackenzies' house?
As her mother begins to leave, she only makes it steps outside before she notices one of the most horrifying things a parent could ever see. Their daughter Casey completely gutted and hanging from a tree. This scene was filmed using an entire life cast of Drew Barrymore hung from the tree. These intense opening scenes are trademark Scream, and almost nothing in movies gets better than the opening scene in the original Scream.
The first 30 pages were perhaps the most compelling 30 pages of a script I've ever read. I couldn't put it down. I was terrified. and I just said, I have to make this film.
You could argue this is the greatest opening scene in horror history. Not only do you have a very famous actor killed off immediately, which is shocking, but this scene squeezes your ass tight from beginning till end.
It made it a whole different kind of picture right there. Drew Barrymore opening up a horror film and then dying, in 10 minutes. That was unprecedented. It was a calculated risk, and we didn't know whether the audience would even forgive us for that. They did, thankfully, but yeah, it was a very risky film in many, many ways.
That same evening, we find ourselves in the room of Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell, who at the size of that PC probably also enjoys playing some intense games of Oregon Trail. Yeah, get cholera, bitch. But for now, she's probably just talking shit on AOL Instant Messenger like the rest of us did. The role of Sidney Prescott was also offered to Molly Ringwald, who turned it down because she felt weird playing a high school kid at 27 years old.
I had actually just done The Craft the year before and then was doing Party of Five, and it was my second hiatus, and wasn't necessarily sure whether I wanted to do another scary type of movie, so I wasn't very certain about the choice, but I knew that I wanted to work with Wes.
Sidney hears a glass break outside her window. Are we about to witness yet another? Oh shit! It's just Billy the boyfriend Loomis, who's played by Skeet Ulrich. I feel like Herbal Essences could have made a killing on a commercial of Skeet finally washing that hair.
What's going on in there? Are you okay?
Can you knock?
I heard screaming.
No, you didn't.
I'm playing Oregon Trail, Dad. I only screamed because I tried to ford the river when I should have waited for the goddamn ferry. Fortunately for this new killer running around town, Sidney's dad's gonna be out of town until Sunday. Also, Billy, we know why you're here. And this dude knows how to make a girl feel special.
I was home watching television. The Exorcist was on. Got me thinking of you.
How sweet, but we all know the real plan, which is too fast for Sidney, so Billy takes his blue balls and leaves, but not so fast. Sidney then asks him if he'd settle for a PG-13 relationship. Alright, now get the fuck out of here. The next morning, we're in front of Woodsboro High School, where the school is now filled with reporters and the police. Originally, these scenes were supposed to be shot at Santa Rosa High School in California. However, right before filming took place, the school board nixed the shooting because the script was too violent. So they had to move filming to Healdsburg, California. As payback, director Wes Craven put in the end credits special thanks section, "No thanks whatsoever to the Santa Rosa City School District Governing Board." Kind of a savage move if you ask me. Here in front of the school, we meet Woodsboro's favorite reporter, Gale Weathers, played by Courteney Cox, wearing a dress you could see from space, and Sidney's best friend, Tatum Riley, played by Rose McGowan. Little fun fact, Courteney Cox almost didn't get the role because Wes Craven was skeptical that she could play a nasty character because of how nice her character Monica was on Friends. Courteney Cox even ended up writing a letter to Wes Craven to convince him that she could play a bitchy character. And I'm glad she did. Tatum breaks the news to Sidney that Casey Becker and Steve Orth were brutally gutted and killed last night. Don't ask me how she already knows all the gory details. Keep in mind, this is pre-Twitter, my friends. By the way, Tatum, why do you look like you just hopped off the set of Scooby-Doo? The entire school's being called in for questioning, which ain't so bad because when your principal's the Fonz, how bad could it be? But why is he touching her face like that? Here we also meet Sheriff Burke, played by Joseph Whipp, and Deputy Dewey, played by David Arquette. After questioning's over, we get to meet the rest of Sidney's clique: Stu Macher, Tatum's boyfriend, and Randy Meeks, the film nerd played by Jamie Kennedy. And we get to find out a little more about Stu.
Hey, Stu, didn't you used to date Casey?
Yeah, for like 2 seconds. Before she dumped you for Steve.
Things are getting spicy. I don't know if I'm more uncomfortable about the murder jokes or how often Stu loves to let his tongue flap in the wind. School's now out and Sid arrives back home. By the way, what does everyone do for a living in this town? The houses in this entire franchise are so sick. Sid and Tatum then make plans to meet up later that night because her dad is still out of town. As Sid channel surfs, we get a little more insight on Tatum's weird comment from earlier at school.
Although this is not the first time this small community of Woodsboro has endured such tragedy. Only a year ago, Maureen Prescott, wife and mother, was found raped and murdered not far from this peaceful town square.
As Sid awakes from a little cat nap, she gets a call from the town's favorite trivia call center agent.
Do you like scary movies, Sidney?
I like that thing you're doing with your voice, Randy. It's sexy.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Oh, come on, you know I don't watch that shit.
Why not? Too scared?
No, it's just what's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
As the call continues, Sidney quickly realizes this isn't Randy, especially now. Well, it could still be Randy, technically. The wrestling match leads upstairs, but didn't you just say, never mind. Upstairs, Sidney locks out Ghostface with just enough time to use her TTY to call the police. Seconds later, Billy lunges through the window claiming he heard a scream. As Billy drops his cell phone at his feet, Sid quickly realizes something's off here. Coupled with Dewey finding a Ghostface mask outside, the cops deem the evidence is enough to book Billy Loomis. Tatum, nice of you to arrive late. We learn a couple things here. First, that Tatum and Dewey are siblings, and that Gale's great to work with.
Look, Kenny?
Yeah?
I know that you're about 50 pounds overweight, but when I say hurry, please interpret that as move your fat tub of lard ass now!
After unsuccessfully attempting to track down Sid's father, this line from Sheriff Burke just reminds me how old this movie is.
What are you doing with a cellular telephone, son?
Yeah, what, you calling people and shit? Maybe playing some Snake on there? I say you just lock them up and throw away the key. After Billy and his pops answer questions with the sheriff, Tatum and Sid attempt to sneak out to avoid the press. Not so fast though, as this is Gale friggin' Weathers and she's getting her interview. But after almost being stabbed to death and coming face to face with the woman trying to profit off her mom's death, Sid's ready to fuck shit up. Damn, I miss the 90s, when you could just punch someone in the face right in front of a cop. We're now back at the Riley home with
Sid, super bitch.
Sid then gets a call from Ghostface and quickly realizes Billy might have been telling the truth. But wait, could he have just been calling from jail though? As Sid and the Riley family enjoy breakfast, the news informs us that a man named Cotton Weary is the man convicted of her mother's murder and is currently awaiting an appeal for the death sentence. Dewey also informs Sid that Billy was released when his cell phone records came back clean. Back at school, Sid confronts Gale again, this time just to chat about her book she wrote about her mother's famous court case. Here we find out that Sid's testimony is the main reason Cotton might be getting the death sentence. However, Gale confidently thinks Cotton is innocent. Amidst the conversation, Gale realizes her mother's killer is probably still on the loose and these new murders are related. And Gale wants to save Cotton. She's such a great person.
If I'm right about this, I could save a man's life. Do you know what that could do for my book sales?
After some dick runs through the school with a Ghostface costume, yeah, you're gonna get expelled. Sid then runs into Billy. This is awkward. Sid feels sorry for accusing Billy, especially after that phone call last night, because you know there's no way there are two killers, right? Billy kinda ruins the mood though when he insists Sid should just get over the fact that her mom was murdered a year ago and have sex with him already. Outside the school, Dewey and Gale officially meet for the first time. Gale knows exactly what strings to pull on a young cop who she might need some favors from later.
Of course, you don't look a day over 12, except in that upper torso area. Does the force require you to work out?
And yeah, it's working, as Dewey then tells Gale that she's much prettier in person. The students hear over the PA system that school's suspended immediately, so what better way to celebrate no school than getting shit-faced at Stu's house? As Principal Fonz tidies his hair and tries on costumes, someone repeatedly knocks at his door. Oh hey, Wes Craven. Damn kids and their Jesus! As Ghostface repeatedly stabs the principal in the torso. Why would the killer go after the principal? I'd say this now narrows the suspects down to someone at the school. We then shift to the video store where Randy works. Besides just more weird tongue shit from Stu, Billy and Stu are also here to pick out a movie for the party, which catches the attention of Randy.
If you were the only suspect in a senseless bloodbath, would you be standing in the horror section?
Here the movie leans into that self-awareness that's become trademark Scream.
This is standard horror movie stuff. Prom night revisited, man.
Yeah? Why would he want to kill his own girlfriend?
There's always some stupid bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend.
We also learn about Randy's infatuation with Sid, which leads the audience to assume could be part of the reason why he would want Billy painted as the killer. Back at the police station, the sheriff alerts Dewey that the phone calls were in fact coming from Sidney's dad's phone, who yes, they still can't find. Oh, lovely boots you have there, Sheriff. Those look familiar. Later that evening, Dewey drops the girls off at Stu's party, and there's no way Gale's missing this shit. Inside the party, Dewey's now walking around with Gale and notices a high school kid drinking a beer, and just laughs and tells him to have a good time and watch the drinking and driving. Ah, the 90s. Gale then plants her camera, hoping to catch something at the party, and Tatum heads to the garage for more beers. But she's not alone.
Oh, you want to play psycho killer? Can I be the helpless victim? Okay, let's see. No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
By the way, this is the first time Ghostface is called Ghostface in the franchise. Uh-oh. Game's over for Tatum, though. Tatum fights back, and I love how clumsy Ghostface is. With nowhere to go other than the dog door or kitty door, I guess, she goes for it and gives us one of the most memorable kills in the movie, either because it's one of the only non-stab kills or because it's quite possibly the strongest garage door known to man. But regardless, it's a fun one, and I like it. Well, now that's over with, can't let a good party go to waste, and Ghostface heads back inside to party. As the party's ending, Sid's getting worried about Tatum.
Tatum, come on! Yeah, do you know where she is?
No, I haven't seen her.
Did she just say chickens? Oh hey Billy, nice of you to show up. Billy and Sid head upstairs to talk about things. After the two chat, which was mainly just Sidney being sincere and vulnerable, and Billy just making movie references the entire time, things get a little more hot and heavy. Meanwhile, downstairs, Randy and the chickens are watching the original Halloween. And fed up with the lack of horror knowledge in the group, Randy's got to teach these noobs the basics.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. Number 1. You can never have sex. Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs. And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back.
And after hearing word that the principal was killed and hung from the goalpost on the football field, most of the party leaves to go check it out, almost running over Dewey and Gale in the process. Dewey, is that your gun, or are you just happy to see me? Dewey also spots Sid's dad's car nearby parked in the trees. Back in the house, Sid and Billy are finished and are now getting dressed when Ghostface shows up and stabs Billy several times. What happens here might seem normal, but if you look closely, right after Billy asks Sidney, "What do I have to do to prove to you that I'm not a killer?" Sidney says, "Oh my God," which most people think is just a response to seeing Ghostface entering the room. But if you look closely, she hasn't even noticed Ghostface yet when she says it. Maybe it was just a bad take that accidentally made the final cut, or maybe she finally realized that she actually saw Billy leaving her mother's murder scene and not Cotton. I'd love to hear Neve Campbell's thoughts on this theory. A chase ensues, and how does Ghostface know the layout of this house so well? It's like he's been here before or something. Eventually, Sid makes it out of the house through the roof and notices a very dead Tatum. She then alerts Kenny the cameraman that they gotta get the fuck up out of here. To no avail though, as Ghostface gets to them first and slits Kenny's throat. After getting stabbed in the shoulder, Sid escapes the van. Gale arrives back at her van and Dewey heads inside the house. Gale finds Kenny on her windshield. Damn Gale, can't you at least make sure he's dead before you toss his ass into the fence? I guess not. Gale then attempts to leave but almost hits Sid in the road, causing her to veer off and crash. Sid arrives back at Stu's house only to find Dewey's got a knife in his back. She attempts to escape, but Sid, looking for these? She eventually does make her way out of the car, but has no clue who to trust at this point as Randy and Stu arrive. She says fuck you both and locks herself inside. She's not alone in the house though, as Billy's apparently survived the stabbings. But probably not the best way to get down the stairs there, Billy Bob. Billy gets to his feet and opens the door to find Randy.
Stu's flipped out. He's gone mad.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
No, Billy!
Oh shit, Randy was right the entire time. Always trust the horror nerd.
Corn syrup. Same stuff they use for pig's blood in Carrie.
Oh good, Stu's here to help.
Surprise, Sidney.
Oh shit, never mind. And here we get the iconic kitchen scene and find out they both not only framed Cotton Weary, but also killed Sidney's mother. The motive was because Billy found out that Sidney's mom was hooking up with his dad, which consequently caused his mother to move out and abandon him. Which seems to sort of surprise Stu based off his facial expression. And if this isn't enough shit to make Sid's brain explode, well, Stewie Boy's got another surprise. Behind door number 1 is Sidney's dad, who they've had kidnapped this entire time and plan on framing for the murders on the 1-year anniversary of her mother's death. And what better way to make things extra believable than to stab each other and pretend you were both left for dead?
You see, Sid, everybody dies but us. Everybody dies but us. We're gonna carry on and plan the sequel, because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
Oh my God, he's literally foaming at the mouth, he's so excited. As Stu goes for the gun to finalize the plan, surprise, Gale nabbed it first. And Gale wants to rewrite their ending, but doesn't realize the safety's still on and gets kicked into a post on the porch. So nighty-night, Gale. But as this is all going down, Sid and her father disappear, and the tables have turned as Sid calls them this time.
You bitch, where the fuck are you?
Not so fast. We're gonna play a little game. It's called
Guess who just called the police and reported your sorry motherfucking ass?
Better hurry and find her though, because Stu's not doing so well. And he doesn't like the whole police thing because it says his mom and dad are gonna be pissed. As Billy goes to look for Sid, turns out she's hiding in a closet and ambushes him with an umbrella. Fun fact here, the second umbrella stab that you see missed the padded chest plate on Billy, so the scream you hear in the movie is genuine pain. Then Stu gets in on the fun and they wrestle their way into the TV room. While this is all going down, Stu admits he always had a thing for Sid, but after Sid hits him with a pot, she gives him one of those in your dreams one-liners and drops the TV on his head, frying his ass. Randy, you're alive! After Randy admits he never thought he'd be so happy to be a virgin, turns out Billy's alive too. And they're not the only ones though, as Gale gets up and saves the day, finally shooting Billy.
Careful. This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare.
Not in my movie.
Originally, this final line in an early copy of the script, no joke, said, and this Billy stud bucket is for having an incredibly small weenie. I'm gonna go ahead and say not in my movie was a tad better. By the way, Dad and Dewey are both okay too. Originally, Dewey was supposed to die from his wound, but Wes Craven filmed an alternate ending just in case of the test audience loved his character. And the movie ends the following morning with Gale Weathers getting the story she always wanted. This entire party scene was actually filmed over the course of 21 days. After it wrapped, the crew had t-shirts made that read "I survived scene 118," which was the name of the scene during shooting. The cast and crew jokingly called it the longest night in horror history. Speaking of history, do I think one of the most important slasher films of all time is good enough to grab, or is it one we want to stab? Let's find out. First off are the kills. Now, despite the lack of creativity, I'm a big fan of the kills. There were 7 total deaths in the original Scream, and my favorite would have to be Casey's at the beginning of the movie. It's such a shocking moment, killing off a character that's so famous early on, and not only is it one of the best opening sequences to any horror movie ever, it's probably one of the best opening sequences to any movie that I've ever seen. It's such a great scene, and despite most of the kills being mainly just knife stabs, the way that the kills are shot, the sequences are so intense. So I'm a big fan of the kills in the Scream movie. Second are the characters and how they fit into the Ghostface reveal. I'm a big fan of the characters in this movie, and being an older millennial, this cast definitely brings me back in time to some good memories. Sidney's easily one of my favorite final girls. The movie also does more than a good enough job building her backstory. Neve Campbell just plays this role perfectly, this character that's smart, vulnerable, but also a badass at the same time, which is like a perfect formula for a final girl. What's also unique about the original Scream is we have 2 final girls, Gale Weathers as well, and Courteney Cox plays that character perfectly. Yeah, I think the characters are great in the original Scream, but Wes Craven also agrees.
We ended up with just the absolutely best cast that I've ever had a chance to direct, and I think one of the best casts in this kind of movie ever.
Now let's talk about the final Ghostface reveal for a second. I think Stu's whole motive, the whole peer pressure thing, is a little bit weak. I don't really love that, although I do like his character as one of the final Ghostfaces. I think he plays that character perfectly. Billy Loomis, revealed as one of the Ghostface, I think is also very, very iconic. I think his character is very, very good in this movie. He plays that creepy boyfriend role perfectly. There's a reason why his character is so iconic, even all these years later. I think the Ghostface reveal overall in this movie is incredible. Not perfect, but it's very, very good. Third, the impact the movie had on the genre. Now, obviously, Scream had a major impact on the horror genre. Not only did it reignite kind of a tired genre, but it changed the tone of the genre forever. Horror movies after Scream became funny and mainstream cool, and not only that, we all saw so many Ghostface costumes every single year on Halloween, which is just a little indicator on how big the impact on the genre was. Fourth, how scary is the original Scream? Now, Scream isn't about that monster under your bed, it's about the killer next door. The original Scream is very, very tense at times, especially that opening scene, which is horrifyingly good. Is Scream a scary movie? You bet your ass it is. And with all that said, I'm not gonna bullshit you guys with theatrics or anything like that. I'm gonna grab the original Scream. I love this movie. It's just so iconic and so good. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Outside of maybe the lack of creative kills, there's not a lot I can say that's bad about the original Scream. Marco Beltrami, we've got to shout him out. His score on this movie, I think, is a big reason why Scream feels very, very unique. Scream's a horror movie made for horror fans. It's also a chance to see actors you would never normally see in horror movies be in a horror movie. The witty funniness and the cleverness in the original Scream is unlike anything we'd ever seen up to this point in the horror genre in 1996. Scream is also kind of cozy to me. It transports me back to being a young kid. But I gotta grab the original Scream. It is just so good, and if you haven't seen it and you're a horror fan, you gotta see it. And since we now know that there were 2 killers in the original Scream, as a little bonus for you guys, I'm gonna speedrun my perspective of who I think killed who in the first Scream. First up was Casey and Steve, based off the fact that the movie's given us every indication that Billy's the brains and Stu's more of the muscle. I'd say Stu's the one who killed Steve, while Billy's on the phone manipulating Casey. After Stu gets punched, Billy takes over and then stabs Casey. Billy also likes to strangle his victims, first like we see at the end of the movie when he chokes Sidney. They both then hang up and gut Casey, which is why they're able to do it so fast. Next up, Principal Himbry, who was killed by Billy while Stu's inviting everyone to his house party. I'm gonna have to give Tatum's kill to Billy because Stu was busy hosting the party, and Billy showed up to the front door right after he ditched the costume and ran around the side of the house. He also gives Stu a look that says, "I got that shit done." Kenny the cameraman's up last, and because Billy's upstairs playing dead, Stu ends up outside killing Kenny. And that's my opinion of who I think killed who in the first Scream. And there you go, that wraps up the original Scream. Next week we jump ahead less than a year to Scream 2. In the meantime though, I'm Matt McFarland, and you just finished watching Grab or Stab. Thank you so much everybody for watching this video. If you enjoy horror content like this, or just horror content in general, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications as well. All of my social media links will be down below in the description if you want to go and follow me over there. Be on the lookout for new episodes coming out every single Friday. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.